Good morning and welcome to ASI's Tuesday Morning Show, where ASI's most outspoken editors talk promo products. I'm Melinda Lagos, editor-in-chief of ASI's magazines, and we have Andy Cohen, the king of Counselor magazine, is right here
Wow, I
in
get
the
a new
room
nickname like
today.
every week.
How about that? Do you like that one?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'll take it.
I mean, it's head honcho. Do you like that too?
No, King.
King.
Much better.
All right,
Yeah.
king of Counselor magazine.
There you go.
Anyway, and we've got a special guest on the phone today. We're going to have Dave Burnett from AOK Marketing talk to us all about everything digital, Andy, SEO, Facebook, all your favorite stuff.
Big topic these days.
Yeah, he just spoke in Chicago, and I see you were in Chicago.
I sure was.
Just last week, Andy, at the Counselor Awards. How did that go?
It was great. Yeah, it was a fantastic event at the Navy Pier. Ended with fireworks.
I heard
All
that.
was good.
And you got to meet, or you got to hear Peyton Manning speak.
I did. Yeah, I didn't meet him, but I did see him speak. He came straight to awards in LA the night before.
He got a big award, right?
Yeah. It was like biggest record-breaking performance or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was good. Interesting. He was talked a lot more about business than I even had expected.
What's the one tip of piece of advice you took away from that?
A couple of things. He is extremely keen on preparation. So, he never goes into a game or even a business meeting without over preparing for that event. So he was talking about that and talking about how everybody should put that into practice and make sure that they're as prepared as they possibly can. So hyper preparation was a big message of his. Secondly, and something I thought was interesting is he's a guy that's been in the NFL for going on almost 20 years basically, and yet he still is of the belief that everybody, himself included, and people in business, lower level or higher level people, all need a coach of some kind. So he talked about the importance of being able to be coached no matter what level you reach in an organization, and always having kind of a coach that you can bounce ideas off of and that you can continue to learn from. He says he continues to learn every day, both in business and in football, and that was pretty interesting.
Well, he's super impressive. I know we had a packed house there. Did he sing any of his little jingles?
He did a little bit, yeah.
Did he say,
he broke
chicken parm, you taste so good?
He talked about some teammates making fun of him, and they were sort of using that form of. I can't remember exactly what he sang, but it was in the form of the Nationwide commercial.
Losing feeling in my chest.
It was pretty funny. He's a very, as you can imagine, sort of engaging and personable guy. Kind of self-deprecating, and he's a unique guy. It was interesting.
Absolutely. And how impressive to have, a current, superstar player.
Absolutely.
Still,
it was really cool.
That's great. Well, I'm glad that you got to see that. And I know that we can read all about it in Promogram.
You sure can. Yeah, Promogram and in Counselor Magazine upcoming next issue.
All right. Well, as I mentioned, we have Dave Burnett on the line. He is an expert in all things online marketing, and he just spoke at our Chicago show, too. Good morning, Dave. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks so much, Melinda. And Andy, I must say it's an honor to be on the line with a king. This is a first for me.
Yes, I know. It was an honor to be called one. It was the first time, so I'll take it.
Well, Dave, thanks for joining us this morning. I know you talked a lot at the ASI Chicago show about using Google AdWords to dominate your niche, and we'll talk about Google and SEO in just a little bit. But just in general, maybe you can first start off by talking about how distributors can better leverage their online marketing to promote their businesses. What are they doing right? What are they doing wrong? And where can they improve?
Well, bottom line, I think, is to start somewhere. A lot of distributors haven't taken any steps at all towards any kind of online marketing, any kind of online presence outside of maybe having a website that they got 10 years ago. So, there's an old saying, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, the next best time is today, and the same thing kind of applies to online marketing. And you have to really start today doing some of the right things, and some of those right things include fixing up your website, making sure you've got a social media presence, and even doing some paid advertising. You have to think about your consumers and where are they and what devices are they on, and then you can start targeting them on those devices.
Well, as Melinda was getting to, what do you think are things that some maybe smaller businesses, our listeners and our audience tend to be more on the smaller business side. What do you think they might do wrong when it comes to online marketing?
Well, not having a presence at all and not recognizing that their brand is actually a brand. There's a lot of distributors out there, and a lot of people have kind of the exact same website with just a logo dropped in. So one of the things I talked about in Chicago was the importance of establishing a niche and figuring out what niche you want to focus on, because you can't sell everything to everybody. I mean, a lot of people say, well, I sell T-shirts, I sell hats. It doesn't really matter. It's whatever that they want. So a big mistake that people are making is saying, all right, there's a million products out there. I'm going to sell them all. That's really not the way to get discovered online. You need to narrow your focus down to a particular niche and then expand out from there. So once you dominate plastic bottles, you can go to all of promotional bottles, then you can go to all of promotional drinkware, then you can go to all of whatever the next category is above that. So that's one of the mistakes that people are certainly making, is not differentiating and not respecting the fact that they've got their own brand.
Gotcha. Okay, so one of the big buzzwords out there today is SEO. I guess more buzz letters, but it's search engine optimization. So how important do you think SEO is to a distributor's marketing efforts?
Well, I think it's very important, but it's one of three things that I think you have to keep in mind. One is SEO, which I also view as a branding effort. The second thing is your paid search to drive targeted traffic to your website. And then the third thing is also your social media efforts and how many fans you can get, those promoters for you online on the different social networks, including Facebook. So SEO, you have to bear in mind when you're doing SEO the way that Google makes money. And the way that Google makes money is by selling ads. So any good SEO strategy should also incorporate some kind of small or medium-sized paid advertising effort, because Google gets paid by having ads clicked on. So if you want them to show you up or have you show up in the SEO search engine results, you should also do a paid program.
Outside of the paid program, what do you think distributors or small companies need to do from an SEO perspective to try to get up a little higher on those search results?
Well, the most important thing is a Google My Business page. The Google My Business is basically the yellow pages of 2015. Back a decade or two ago, you used to be able to buy a display ad in a Yellow Pages book, and it would be there for the year, and your phone would ring. And unfortunately, that doesn't work anymore. So the Yellow Pages of today is the Google My Business page, which shows up as an organic result when people are searching for something locally in your local marketplace. And having that set up, which is free from Google, you just got to put in your information, and you can do things like staff bios, your hours of get reviews and things, and that's a great first step in doing any kind of SEO effort.
All right. Well, let's talk about, so say that you are making some SEO efforts and you're doing online marketing and all that good stuff. What tools should distributors be using to analyze their online efforts and find out what's working and what they should continue to invest in?
Well, the best and first and foremost tool that anybody should be doing is signing up for Google Analytics. It's free. You simply have to log into Google, have a Gmail account, or even use your other existing email, and then sign up for Google Analytics. You then take a little piece of code, put it on your website, and what that does is it actually tells you where people have been on your website, how many pages they've viewed, what are your most popular pages, and then you can even set up things like goals. So if somebody went to your website and then filled out a form, for example, you can trigger that as a goal on your website and then start to target those types of people given particular behaviors that they've taken. Now that's the best kind of free tool. Now there's some great paid tools as well if somebody's got some additional effort or additional budget associated with that. And one is Rival IQ. You can just go to rivaliq.com, and they actually keep track of your website and any changes on it, but also keep track of some of your competitors' websites and also their Facebook page and any changes that happen there, what had a great post. If they had a very popular post that resonated with a lot of people and got a lot of engagement, it'll tell you about that and send you notifications. And then there's another paid tool that's called SEM Rush. And SEM Rush basically is a tool that lets you know who is advertising for what kind of keywords outside of Google AdWords. And then the last tool is actually Google AdWords. There's a lot of different tools within or functions within Google AdWords that you can determine what niche markets you should focus on.
Dave, you talked about competitors just a little bit there. How important do you think it is as part of online marketing efforts to know what your competitors are doing in the online space as well?
I think it's absolutely essential. If you're focusing on a particular niche, you need to know who's in that niche and who's actually marketing in that niche against you. So if you have no idea and you just think, okay, well, I find some of the larger distributors everywhere, so I'm going to try and take on one of those guys, that may not necessarily be relevant for people searching in your particular marketplace for your particular niche. So having the competitive intelligence associated with what they're actually doing is key to making sure you get the best mileage out of every dollar.
Yeah, I think some things that people sort of miss from the online world is the amount of information that they can get, not just on competitors, but on clients as well or prospects. And I'm not sure people in this market, from those that I've spoken to, take as much advantage of that as they really possibly can. Is that something that you see as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are some great advantages out there to people who are willing to put in a little bit of effort in online marketing in the marketplace, because there aren't a lot of people doing a good job of it. So you're absolutely correct. Then the more information you have, the better decisions you can make.
Great. Well, you touched on social media just a bit ago. How do you think a distributor, or really any small business, can use social media effectively? What do they need to do to ensure that they're, not wasting their time on social media, but actually getting some return on their time investment?
Well, the one thing about social that everybody seems to forget is that social media is social. It's not necessarily a broadcast platform, and it's certainly not necessarily a search platform, although you can get found within Facebook or LinkedIn depending on your company pages and things like that. But really, to be effective with social media, you have to participate, and you have to actually be there. So when I say be there, I don't mean you have to have 10 different social media accounts and be actively pursuing all of those 10 different social media accounts on your Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Pinterest and all those things. Number one, I think you should have a presence on all of those places to at least claim your name. You can just have a profile set up, a proper profile, and then say, for more information, visit our website at www, whatever your website might be, or visit us on our Twitter account. The key with social media really is to be wherever your customers are. If your customers are on LinkedIn, make sure you're there, make sure you're active. If your customers are on Facebook, make sure you're there. If your customers are on Twitter, make sure you're there. So just whatever social media platform that you can dedicate the resources to, just direct the other social media platforms to that one that you're most active on, but make sure you have a presence on all of them.
And something that you hear all the time today about social media and being active in those networks is the importance of providing, I guess, what we'll say is valuable content, and kind of content marketing. What do you think makes the best content that people can provide in social media?
Well, I think it really varies by each individual company's niche and also what the voice is associated with their brand. If they've got a fun brand that's a bit more laid back and they call themselves swag or whatever that may be associated with their particular brand voice, then having content associated with that is important. Saying, top 5 uses of swag for radio stations, those types of things, just informational, educational content. Content is a big part of SEO. If you're doing a longer-term strategy that way, but it's also very important to help establish your brand and have your brand out there for the world to find, because the customer journey to finding and completing a purchase is not a straight one. It's not ABC. They may find you on Twitter, then they go to your website, check you out, then they may download a white paper, then they might favorite a Facebook post, and then they'll get a paid ad, and then they'll actually go and buy some mugs from you.
Right.
It's not... it's certainly not ABC anymore.
And ultimately, people, people shouldn't, I would assume, be, just overtly selling or promoting through Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, but rather, like we're talking about, providing, valuable content that might hook people in.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's the thing about social, as I mentioned. Social is social. So can you imagine if somebody in your, walking up to a cocktail party and there's always that one guy who's always just kind of in your face trying to sell you something? You got to have a conversation with people and mention what you do, and then occasionally, if there's an opening, throw out, I'd love to help you with that, or, being social as opposed to necessarily straight hardcore selling is definitely a better approach we found with our customers on social media.
Sure. Well, one last thing, Dave. What one piece of advice would you give distributors who really want to ramp up their online marketing efforts? What's one thing they should be thinking about right now?
Well, the one thing they should do is definitely start today. Whatever it is they're going to do, start today. But I want to give ASI a bit of a plug here because you guys have a great service called Brand Builder. It's the ASI Brand Builder, and what it does is it's a program that basically gives you an upgraded website. It gives you a paid search presence and also a social media presence on Facebook. So for a relatively inexpensive price, you can get all three of those things, cover kind of all the major bases, and still being able to, if you don't have the time to do it yourself, have somebody out there actually doing it for you. So that whether they decide to do it themselves or whether they do a paid service through something like that, it's just start today. That's the most important thing.
Okay, well, that's good advice. Well, thank you so much to Dave Burnett, and we'll hear a lot more from you at the ASI shows next year.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. I think what Dave said is really important in terms, and we hear that a lot, is to be where your customers are. If they're Twitter followers, be on Twitter and such, and not just feel like overwhelmed that you have to be on every medium, but really zero in on the ones that you think your customers are using most.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that some of the Dave didn't really say it, but I think the point he was getting at about the idea of just starting, there's like a paralysis when it comes to some
People are
things
it's
like
overwhelming,
this.
so I just won't do anything.
Right. So I'm just not going to do it. I'll do what I've always done. Well, meanwhile, there are customers out there to be had. There's people to interact with, and that could be interested in buying products from you or buying services that you offer. And they could be right next door. There's local search that I know some distributors are getting involved in as far as through Google, and that really can be valuable to your business. A lot of distributors mostly sell locally, so it not being on, through it not being doing any kind of paid search online can negate any of that opportunity. So I think, like Dave Burnett was saying, you want to be involved in, not just free SEO things, but also some small paid search. It's often pay per click, so the more it costs more if you're more successful, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. So there's some good elements to that. I think the idea of just getting started is important. And look, there's a lot of social networks, but the big ones are where people are.
Sure.
So, if you start with Facebook and LinkedIn and you just choose two, then, there are plenty of companies there, and you'll start to be connecting immediately. And that's something that you want to have, that social presence today. It's just extra traffic to drive to your website. It's extra ways to connect with people that you may not have done otherwise.
Sure. And, you look antiquated to younger buyers, too. I talked to a distributor out in California last week, and she said that all of her young buyers, before they do business with her, they check her out on social media. They check her out on Facebook. If she hasn't posted, or if she's never posted, or if she hasn't posted in months, they notice that, and they're like, oh, this isn't a cool, creative person that I want to work with.
Right. That is one thing. I would actually disagree with one thing that Dave had just said. Mm-hmm. And he said, have a presence on every social network. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, and it goes to the point you were getting at right there. If you have a presence on Twitter and somebody looks you up and you haven't posted in 6 weeks, that doesn't look good.
No, I totally agree.
I'm on Twitter every day, and when I when I find new people in the industry to follow or to look at their feeds, and if I see they haven't posted anything in the past month,
But yeah,
I don't
they're
follow
not
them.
really involved in it.
It's just that's just the way I'm going to go about it, and that's the way clients are going to go about it too. So I would say choose a couple of social networks where you
You're
can
really gonna do
dedicate
it.
some time.
I totally agree.
And take some time every day, every other day, at least once a week to put something up there. Link to anything in your local business journal. Link to anything on your own website that's a case study. It's always better to link to your own stuff, but if you don't have your own stuff, at least find local business stories that are about marketing, about promotions, about charity walks, about things that use promotional products, and just talk about how well they were used. Doesn't have to be your own. Doesn't have to be things that you provided. It can just be interesting ideas for other clients or people that are following you.
I totally agree, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time.
No,
a
it
few
doesn't.
minutes a day to spend just to be engaged, and
Yeah.
that is great. All right, well, I want to switch gears for 1 minute because, Andy, we talk a lot about selling and cold calling
Yep.
in our magazines, and I received the
Ooh,
worst
this ought to be
cold
good.
call in the history of my life.
Really?
Last week, and
Okay.
so bad that I want to tell you. And also,
I'm
it's
curious.
funny because I read in the Harvard Business Review recently that only 10% of cold calls result in an appointment with a prospect. Which is a really low number,
I'd actually
right?
guessed that the number was lower.
Right,
I
but
would've
it's
guessed
really
that.
low.
Yeah.
But you know why? It's because I think some people are really bad at it.
Yeah.
And I think
They
if
are.
you're really good at it, you can greatly improve your chances. But the person who called me, so I got a call last week, and the person, first of all, started by stammering when I
Oh.
answered the phone. Maybe they were expecting to get my voice. I'm not
That's
sure.
a problem.
Then, they pronounced my name wrong, which most people do, and they say Ligos incorrectly, but whatever. I'm used to that.
You'll let that slide?
But then they say, okay, well, this is so-and-so from the Philadelphia 76ers. Okay,
Oh,
so
you
I'm
just
interested.
gave it away.
I'm interested in sports. And so I'm like, okay, well, what do you
This
have
is good
to say?
because they're not just bad
Even
on
though
the court,
one of
but
the
they're obviously
Sixers-
bad off the court too.
Yes, there's a correlation, I think. So then I'm like, okay. And he's like, well, let's back up a minute. Why don't you tell me what you do?
He said that to you?
To me. Like, I mean,
The
I
hell's the
barely ever
difference?
answer the phone, first of all, because I'm never at my desk. And then it's like, wait a minute. So now he's taking my time, asking me what I do. And I'm like, excuse me? And he's like, well, what is the advertising? And then he said like advertising something institute. He said the name of our company.
Right.
What is that? And I'm like, really?
It's just-
So
It's none of your business.
so I, briefly told him what it is. He goes, oh, well, and what do you do there? And again, so all of a sudden I'm wasting my time on the phone with a salesperson. I
Right.
don't even know what he's selling. And I'm wasting my time having to explain to him what I do when he could have easily found that through social media, through
Exactly.
any other venue, a website, anything. But I briefly told him what I did. And then here's the best part. He said, well, you wouldn't be interested in like taking people from your company like to see the Sixers, would you? And I said, no, I would not.
Well, since you put it that way. Yeah, I don't know that a good opening question is, you wouldn't want to buy from me, would you?
And I said no.
Doesn't
And
seem
then
right.
he didn't say, I was expecting to say, well, is there someone at your company? But he said, thank you. And he hung up.
Oh my God, wow, that's really bad. That's a terrible salesperson that's on the other end of that line, and the 76ers should be embarrassed. But it does go to the point that we were talking about. There really shouldn't be any true cold call today. You shouldn't
No.
be. There's no reason to call somebody and not have any information on them. Your name is not so popular that he would find 50 million of you.
No, I think there's just one.
Right.
Of me.
So a quick Google search will give a little idea as to who you are, or maybe what company you work at, or
Yeah, and I'm on
or
Twitter,
what you
and
do.
I'm on Facebook, and I'm on our company website.
Right. So there's no reason to have a pure cold call where you know nothing about the person on the other end of the line. It's just that just means you didn't do any research
Yeah.
before you picked up the phone,
Well,
and that doesn't make any sense.
I'll tell you, and we do have group outings on our editorial team.
Sure.
We're going to the horse races next month,
I know.
believe. But, in 1 minute, he probably could have found out that our company, has something to do with branded products, and that I'm an editor of the Missa magazines, right?
Right.
So how easy would it be to say, hey, do you ever take I see you're an editor, do you ever take your staff out for an outing, Do they
Right.
like sports? I mean, How easy is that? Instead of, okay, let's back up. What do you do?
Right. It's funny. It's a cold call, but he actually could have sold you something. A better salesperson could have sold you something. We went last
I'm
summer.
not that hard to
Last
sell.
summer we took 25 people to a Phillies game.
Right.
So
No, it's
it's
legit.
not so crazy that come winter we would take 25 people to a Sixers game either. If the right person was on the other end of the line, maybe they could have gotten
Right.
you to
And
that point or sent you
And
more
I also
information.
could have referred him to other people
Right.
in the company,
Right.
but he didn't even ask for a referral.
Right. So boo Sixers.
Boo Sixers, no wonder they're so bad. Anyway,
Anybody wonder why the 76ers have an attendance problem?
that was
It's not just because of the play on the court.
that was anyway, that was my pet peeve. But in terms of good cold calling, and we've talked a lot about this in the magazines and at the shows. I mean, the research point is so quick, right? I mean, it's so
Yeah.
easy now to do research on someone. I know David Blaze talks a lot about cold calling in his classes at the ASI shows. He suggests too, offering up something to the person on the phone. Maybe you've done a little research, you find out that they put on trade shows, and maybe you found a great article or a great white paper or a tip, and that you'd like to offer them, or even email to them before you called them. So you're warming up that cold call,
Right.
and then you're positioning yourself also as an expert and not, well, you don't want to buy this, do you?
Right. Well, it's kind of a cliche in sales, but information really is power. There's no other way to say it. The more information you have on a prospect that you're calling on, the more successful you're going to be. It's just that is like an equation that always works in sales. So if you can find any information out before you pick up that phone or before you send that first email, then at least the person feels like you know who they are and you understand what their business is, and you have figured out why they might be interested in talking to you.
Sure.
If you can answer any of those questions before you make a cold call or send a cold email, you're better off. You just are.
Well, I'll give you a positive example, completely opposite of the Sixers call. But, we just recently found out that we were finalists for a whole bunch of ASBP journalism awards. And someone connected with me on LinkedIn, a freelance writer. And I accepted her connection, and she
Right.
said, congratulations.
Yeah,
And she
smart move.
listed, she said, I see Wearables and Stitches are up for Magazines of the Year, and I looked at them, and that's exactly, it happens to be the kind of writing that I do too. You
Right.
should put that later in her thing. But first it was like, I was like, oh, she's excited for us.
Yeah,
that we won
that's
an
a smart
award.
move.
And then of course I, connected with her, and she's sending me her samples, and maybe she'll write for us. But that was certainly a smart way to go about it. And again,
Totally.
so easy. She just got a list of all the winners and probably sent the same email to every magazine on there,
Right.
that she wanted to write for. And that's a really smart way to do it. And it took, a couple minutes.
Right. Yep.
All right. Well, that's my cold calling
There you
rant
go.
of the day.
That was a Joe Haley-esque rant.
All right. Well, we are out of time. Thanks, everyone, for listening. And be sure to tune in again next week. Have a great week.